Hi friends, we are back, and today is a new day, and a new day means a new unit talk. And today I want to talk about Rahu because that was the other one besides Tiamat that was highly requested. Apparently, you guys really like me talking about bruises, so here we go. Alright, now let's take a look at Rahu in the archives because it's max level, or the skills are max, so that we can understand what he is actually trying to do. So first things first, we look at his stat line. He's higher on his defense, right? He has acceptable speed, I want to say, for a bruiser. And let's take a look at the passive first, because the passive is what makes Rahu Rahu. Okay, so at the start of battle, he gains 3 stacks of Wrath. During the battle, for every 4 actions the other allies take, he gains a stack of Wrath. When other ally enemies don't use attack skill, there's a 60% chance he gets another stack of Wrath. Now, what is Wrath? Wrath is his main, bread and butter, okay? And what it does is it increases his defense by 5% up to 12 stacks, okay? This effect cannot be dispelled, and after an ally attacks, there's a 50% chance that he can assist, consuming 1 Wrath stack. He can also transfer 1 debuff from the assist ally to the target at 4 stacks, okay? He consumes 1 more stack of Wrath from the assist ally to transfer an extra 1 debuff at 6, and for every 4% defense self has above the targets, increases the final damage dealt, okay? By 1% up to 8 stacks up to 40%. That is basically what Wrath does. The more Wrath stacks he has, the more lethal Rahu becomes, okay? Because it's all about, the defense difference between your opponent and you, alright? And how does he, help with that? He has his S3, which gives him, defense up, or your entire team defense up, all right? And while gaining 3 stacks of Wrath and then deals damage. That's basically what his S3 does. His S3 is basically his engine to get him going, okay? So you're always leading with Rahu on an S3, regardless, all right? His S1 is basically a defense down. Now, why is it a defense down? Number 1, it's because it plays with his Wrath stacks. Alright, if you have a defense down, you are getting nuked. Heavily nuked. Okay? And so, now that we understand how Rahu works, okay, let's take a look at him in game. Alright? Because mine is not skilled up. So, let's take a look at Rahu here right now. So, we can see in his wheel, alright, you can see that I have level 4 his S1. And why is that? That's because his speed is here. And if you remember the older videos that I have made, when I say look at the skill tree and where the speed is, and then look at why it's put there, let's take a look, okay? So at S1, at level 2, it increases the damage dealt. Cool. At level 3, it increases the defense down chance to 40%. And at level 4, he does more damage with his S1. Now, why is the speed in here, you will ask? If you think about it logically, he is mainly pressing S1s, or he's assisting with his basic attack, which is his S1. And if you can do more damage with your S1, for example, 350% of your defense versus, 300, I'm pretty sure it's about 300, you're doing more damage. You also have a much higher chance of proccing defense down as well while assisting. Okay, and that's why the speed is here, and that's why I also went with, the skill 1 first. And so, when you're trying to build Rahu, when you're trying to use your tofus on Rahu, what you want to do is you want to look, right? He's not someone you just go 555 straight away. You want him to eventually be 555, but you have to take it nice and slow. So, if you look at his S2 here, what does his S2 do? His S2 is basically, giving him the chance to proc Wrath when your opponent doesn't use an attack skill, alright? And you can see at the end here, it says increase the number of Wrath stacks gained at the start of battle to 3, alright? Now, that's not so important. You start at 2 anyway, it's okay, right? But you can see here, you start at 2, you're fine. Eventually, you're gonna go up in Wrath stacks anyway. And so, S2 is probably his, least priority for now, alright? You eventually want it to be 555, like I said. What about his S3? Now, his S3 is his first starting move. That's how he opens his sequence, alright? And so I would recommend, you can see that it's mostly, the first one here is about his damage. Then the fourth one here, whoopsie, where am I going? The fourth one here is also his damage. Alright? And in between here, level 3 and level 5, or his skill is basically up to do with his ref stacks. Okay? You want to at least get one of this first. Okay? And so once you're done here with S1, you've gotten, his speed. You can leave this for now. Alright? Come down to his S3 here. Let's come all the way up to, here. Okay? Come up to level 4 as well. Grab the HP because he's a bruiser. He's going to need the HP. You can't just rely on his defense. Alright? And then eventually come back here. Alright? Come here and then get this up to 50%. Okay? It's a bit complicated. And then max out his S3, his S1, and then at the end, finish off his S2. That is how I would build Rahu. At the moment, we are still, in this tofu shortage. Eventually, we are not going to be. And so this is my progression for Rahu. Alright? So, now that we understand how Rahu works, let's talk about what kind of modules we should put on him. Now, we all know that he's a defense scaling DPS. Alright? So, generally speaking, you want to start with Unbreakable. Okay? Because Unbreakable gives you 45% defense. That helps you, boost your defense up a little bit more so that you do more damage, right? It also makes him a bit more tanky. But when you start getting into the later game, alright, you eventually want to get off Unbreakables and you want to get into what I want to call your Bloodbath. Okay? Why Bloodbath? Because if we look at what a Bloodbath set does, alright, let's come here, let's hit Bloodbath. Let's take a look at one piece here, alright? Bloodbath gives you, damage mitigation, alright? When the total damage taken exceeds 20% of max HP, the excess damage is additionally reduced by 55%. This helps you survive, and Rahu needs to survive, because if he stays on the board long enough, he becomes a massive threat. The more ref stacks he has, the more chances he has to assist. The more times he assists, the more chances he has to proc defense down. The more chances he has to proc defense down, the more times you're dead. Okay? So, playing him on Bloodbath is quite important in the later game. You can see that I still currently have him on Unbreakable, but that is eventually going to change. What about his 8-piece? His 8-piece will definitely be Bramble, because it's already annoying enough that he is already assisting. Now you're trying to get rid of him, and what is worse than him countering? Alright? You touch him and all of a sudden your defense down. You're about to die. I can tell you that much. And so, Bramble is probably his best 8-piece, and for his 6-piece is going to be Colossal Guard. And what is Colossal Guard? I don't have Colossal Guard at the moment. So we'll go back into the archive and let's take a look at what Colossal Guard does. Okay? Colossal Guard gives you an extra 25 defense and effect resistance by 20%. Now this is also quite important. Don't sleep on effect rest, okay? Sometimes in a long drawn out fight, proccing this effect rest on your opponent who is trying to do something to your Rahu means game or death. Alright? Extra 25% defense, that's where you're going to be getting most of your defense from your set, because as we can see, Bloodbath does not give that. Alright? And so in total here, you can see you already have 38% effect resistance. That is an amount that, can swing the game into your favor. Alright? Especially in a longer fight. Alright? Now, knowing what his set is, now what about his shell, you would ask? There is only one shell for him, okay? And that will be Artisan. And why Artisan? It's because when Artisan is awakened, you get this, alright? Before the owner takes action, increases the defense by 700, so you get extra defense, which means you do more damage. That means your gap between your opponent's defense and your defense is now wider, you do more damage, correct? And then you apply a 2-turn shield equal to 400% of your own defense to the owner's elements with the lowest HP, alright? So you eventually become a support DPS, you can become a support DPS, where you support your units that are about to die with a massive fuck off shield. That shield is so damn big, sometimes it's like a second life. Let's be real here. Okay? And so Artisan is his only shell, in my opinion, at the moment. We don't know whether they're going to bring out more shells in the future. They probably will as the game goes on. But you can see that in the matrices for Artisan, it has everything we want. It has Bloodbath. It has Bramble. It has Colossal Guard. Okay? There is an argument for you to put Ether Plague on him. Okay? But Colossal Guard is always better, in my opinion, because you're getting that extra 25% defense. Alright? Ether Plague gives you more HP, and only if you have enough defense, then you can consider going Ether Plague. Alright? If not, stick on Colossal Guard. Alright? Now, we know what his set is, we know what his shell is. What about the right side of your shell? I mean, of your modules. That's probably the most important question that I need to answer. And so, if you are on Unbreakable, okay, I can say you can go defense, crit damage. Alright? Because you're already getting 45% defense. So you can, stack a little bit more damage in here. Okay? But if you are going to go down to the Bloodbath route, which I would recommend in the future, alright, especially if you're fighting against, Rev Cleavers, you're going to need Bloodbath. You're going to want to go defense, crit, and you're going to forego crit damage. And why is that? It's because you have to make up for the defense that you are losing from the set bonus. Okay? You have to hit about 3,000-ish. Right now I'm at 3,000 defense. I want to give it to be maybe about 3k to 3.3, 3.5. And that will make him feel, more of a tank. Alright? He can absorb more damage, he can dish more damage, win-win. So when you go into the Bloodbath route, I would highly recommend your right side being defense, crit, and your on Unbreakable, you will go defense, crit damage. Alright? Just to get that extra oomph out of him. Okay? Now, how do you use him, you were going to ask. Basically, you want to use Rahu, right, as an answer to Tiamat, usually, alright, because Tiamat is very weak into Rahu, okay, and I will show you a little RTA clip, I'll put it somewhere in the middle here, where my Rahu literally one-shotted a defense down Awakened Dragon Form Tiamat, alright, let that run for a little bit. Okay. There, you saw that, right? Insane. And so, why did I pick Rahu in that draft? I don't have the draft anymore, but because I saw he was going Tiamat and I used that to answer the Tiamat pick, basically. Okay? Because his Tiamat was to answer my Holden. My Holden was early pick, so he picked Tiamat and I picked Rahu later on down the draft to answer the Tiamat. And that was the result of it. And if you're not playing Rahu into a Tiamat, then how are you using him? Basically, you can use him as an assist attacker. So, if you're drafting a Lily, okay? If you're playing a Lily draft and you're, pushing up the DPS already, or you're pushing up, a CC unit, Rahu can be there to do that extra damage. The one place he is not good in is when he is, paired with, Kazuyo. And why is that? It's because Kazuyo sleeps, and then he assists, and then wakes him up. Sometimes that just messes with your tempo, so don't do that. When you are trying to build an assist team, really think about it. Okay, if you're going Lily Rahu, who is the DPS there that he is assisting to do more damage? Okay, and that is how I would definitely play Rahu in this current format. We don't know in the future what it will bring, but this is my stats at the moment. You don't want him to be a snail, you want him to move, and so getting him to about 200-ish speed is probably, good, especially if you're on Bloodbath. Alright? But that's Rahu, guys. If you like this content, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.